On a rain-slicked highway outside Chicago, fate was about to play its hand. Jack Martinez, a single father working 3 jobs to keep his daughter in ballet classes, almost drove past the stranded Mercedes that evening. His own check engine light had been blinking for weeks, and he was already running late for his night shift, but something made him stop. Maybe it was the way the woman was staring helplessly at her smoking engine. Or maybe it was just the kind of person his daughter was raising him to be. He didn't know that Sarah Montgomery had deliberately disabled her own car that night, desperate to escape the suffocating world of board meetings and billion-dollar decisions. She was searching for something real in a life built on spreadsheets and shareholders. What she found was a man who had nothing to give, but gave everything anyway. Would his genuine kindness be enough to bridge the gap between their 2 worlds? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The alarm buzzed at 4:30 a.m., and Jack Martinez's calloused hand reached out to silence it before it could wake Emma. Their small 2-bedroom apartment was quiet, except for the gentle hum of the aging heating system that he'd repaired more times than he could count. Through the thin walls, he could hear his daughter's soft breathing from the next room, the sound that kept him going through every exhausting day. He moved through their morning routine with practiced precision, starting the coffee maker he'd rescued from a customer's junk pile and fixed up himself. The kitchen light flickered as he pulled out Emma's favorite cereal and set it beside the pink ballet bag she'd packed the night before. His eyes lingered on the worn point shoes peeking out. They'd need replacing soon, and his mental calculator started running numbers he knew wouldn't add up. 3 years had passed since Maria's death, but mornings like these still caught him off guard. He could almost hear her humming in the kitchen, see her dancing with Emma while making breakfast. The medical bills from her battle with cancer had wiped out their savings, but it was the absence of her laugh that had left the biggest void. Still, he had Emma, and in her he saw Maria's spirit dancing on. "Daddy?" Emma's sleepy voice pulled him from his thoughts. She stood in the doorway, already in her practice clothes, her dark hair escaping from what was supposed to be a neat button. At 8 years old, she carried herself with a dancer's grace, just like her mother. "Morning, mija." He knelt to fix her hair, his rough mechanic's hand somehow finding the gentleness needed for this daily ritual. "Ready for your big practice today?" Her eyes lit up. "Miss Thompson says I might get to try the new variation if I nail the pirouettes." She demonstrated, spinning in their tiny kitchen until she wobbled and giggled. Jack caught her mid-spin, his heart swelling and breaking simultaneously. Every month was a careful juggling act, the rent, utilities, groceries, and ballet lessons constantly competing for his stretched resources. His day job at Martinez Auto Repair barely covered the basics, even with him doing most repairs himself. The evening delivery route helped with Emma's dance classes, and the night security shifts he picked up at the industrial park were supposed to be building their emergency fund. But unexpected expenses kept emptying it. "You'll nail those pirouettes. Baby, just like your mama." He kissed the top of her head, now properly bunned, and started their breakfast routine. As he made her oatmeal, with a drizzle of honey, just the way she liked it, Emma chattered about her upcoming recital and her dreams of dancing at Lincoln Center someday. A familiar wave of determination washed over him as he watched her eat. He'd missed opportunities in his own life, chances at education and advancement that poverty had stolen from him. But Emma, she would have every chance he could give her, even if it meant working until his hands bled and his back gave out. The morning light was just beginning to peek through their window when they headed out. Their old Honda protested as he turned the key, and Jack added another item to his mental repair list. Emma hummed beside him, practicing her arm positions even. While seated, in the rear-view mirror, he caught sight of the Martinez Auto Repair sign growing distant as they headed toward the dance studio, its letters fading just like his father's dreams of passing down a thriving business. Pulling up to Chicago Ballet, Academy. Jack felt the familiar twist in his gut. The other parents' luxury SUVs and pristine sedans lined the drop-off area, a stark contrast to his weathered Honda. But Emma never noticed these things. She was already bouncing in her seat, spotting her friends through the studio's windows. "Love you, Daddy." She leaned over to kiss his cheek before hopping out, her ballet bag almost as big as she was. "Love you more, mija." He watched her skip into the studio, her ponytail bouncing with each step. Make those pirouettes count. As he pulled away, heading to open the shop, Jack's mind wandered back to the woman from last night, the one with the Mercedes. There had been something different about her, something that went beyond the expensive car and designer clothes. He shook his head, pushing the thought away. He had 3 jobs to juggle and a daughter's dreams to protect. Romance, or even friendship, was a luxury he couldn't afford. Sarah Montgomery stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of her penthouse office, watching Chicago's skyline shimmer in the morning light. 52 floors below, the city was already pulsing with life. But up here, surrounded by glass and steel, she felt oddly disconnected from it all. Her assistant's voice crackled through the intercom, listing off the day's meetings, but Sarah's mind kept drifting back to the rain-soaked evening and the kind eyes of a stranger. "Miss Montgomery?" Her assistant, Rebecca, appeared in the doorway, tablet in hand. "The board is waiting in the conference room. Mr. Chen specifically asked about the merger proposals." Sarah suppressed a sigh, smoothing her Chanel suit. At 32, she was the youngest CEO in Montgomery Technology's history, and some board members, particularly Thomas Chen, never let her forget it. "Tell them I'll be there in 5 minutes." The boardroom fell silent as she entered. 12. Pairs of eyes following her movement to the head of the table. The morning sun caught the edge of her father's portrait on the wall, his stern expression a constant reminder of the legacy she carried. 20 billion in assets, 30,000 employees, and 100 years of family history, all resting on her shoulders. "Gentlemen," she began, her voice carrying the authority she'd spent years cultivating, "I understand we're here to discuss the Chen-Montgomery merger proposal." She met Thomas Chen's gaze directly. The man who'd been her father's closest friend now seemed determined to orchestrate her personal and professional life. "Sarah," Thomas leaned forward, his silver hair catching the light. "This merger isn't just about business. A union between our families would stabilize both companies. My son James is more than willing. I've reviewed the proposal," Sarah cut in, her tone professional but firm. "While the business synergies are promising, I believe we need to explore other growth opportunities." Under the table, her hands clenched into fists, but her expression remained neutral. "My team has identified several promising small businesses for our innovation incubator program." The room erupted in murmurs. Thomas's face darkened. "Small businesses. Sarah, we're talking about billions in potential value here. Your father always understood—" "My father understood adaptation," Sarah countered, pressing a button that brought up a presentation on the room's screens. "These small businesses represent the future of American innovation. By investing in them, we're not just generating returns, we're building sustainable communities." The meeting dragged on for 2 hours, a familiar dance of power and politics. When it finally ended, Sarah retreated to her office, sinking into her chair. Rebecca followed, closing the door behind her. "They're still talking about last night," Rebecca said quietly, placing a tablet in front of Sarah. On the screen, a gossip blog speculated about the Montgomery heiress's mysterious breakdown, complete, with blurry photos of her Mercedes on the highway. Sarah touched the screen, zooming in on one photo. They hadn't captured Jack's face, thank goodness. "Let them talk, Sarah." Rebecca's voice softened. "I've known you since college. This isn't just about avoiding James Chen or the merger, is it? What really happened last night?" The question hung in the air as Sarah stood, walking back to the windows. Below, a group of school children crossed the street, their small figures reminding her of the way Jack's daughter had been described in his wallet's worn photos. "I met someone real," she finally said. "No agenda, no angle, just kindness." She turned to face Rebecca. "Do you know he refused to take any money? Said helping people was its own reward." A laugh escaped her. "When was the last time anyone, in my world, did something without expecting something in return?" Rebecca's expression was concerned. "What are you planning?" Sarah's fingers traced the edge of her desk, brushing against a folder labeled Community Investment Initiative. "I want to help him, but not as Sarah Montgomery, billionaire CEO. Just as Sarah, the woman whose car broke down." "That's a dangerous." "A game," Rebecca warned. "If the board finds out you're personally involving yourself with investment prospects, then we make sure they don't find out." Sarah's voice held a note of determination. "I've spent my entire life being what everyone else needed me to be, the perfect daughter, the ideal CEO, the potential society bride." She gestured to the skyline. "I have all this power, all these resources, but what's the point if I can't use them to make a real difference?" She pulled up Jack's information on her private screen, the details she'd gathered from his dropped wallet before having it anonymously returned. Martinez Auto Repair was struggling, but honest, with glowing customer reviews about Jack's integrity and skill. His daughter Emma's ballet school fees were always paid, even when the shop's utility bills ran late. "I'm not trying to buy him," Sarah said softly, more to herself than Rebecca. I want to give him the same kind of help he gave me. No strings attached." Rebecca watched her friend carefully. "And if he finds out who you really are?" Sarah's hand unconsciously went to her chest, where a simple pendant hung beneath her silk blouse, her mother's last gift before passing. "Then, I hope he'll understand that sometimes the richest people are the ones with nothing to give but kindness." The rest of her day was filled with the usual parade of meetings and decisions, but Sarah's mind kept returning to the rain-soaked highway. For the first time in years, she felt something real stirring in her heart, something that had nothing to do with stock prices or merger proposals. As evening approached, she made her decision. "Rebecca," she called out, "cancel my dinner with the investors, and find me something less conspicuous to wear. I think it's time my car needed another repair." The rain had begun to fall harder when Jack pulled over behind the stranded Mercedes. His headlights caught the shimmer of an expensive dress and high heels that were definitely not made for roadside emergencies. He grabbed his toolbox from the trunk, already running through potential quick fixes in his mind. Being late for his security shift would hurt, but leaving someone stranded would hurt worse. "Having trouble?" he called out, approaching with careful steps to avoid startling her. The woman turned, and for a moment Jack forgot about the rain. There was something vulnerable in her eyes that didn't match her polished appearance. "It just started smoking," Sarah explained, gesturing helplessly at the engine. She'd deliberately loosened a few connections earlier, but the actual steam now billowing from under the hood hadn't been part of her plan. "I don't know anything about cars." Jack set his toolbox down and popped the hood, professionally ignoring how the rain was plastering his workshirt to his skin. "Let's take a look. I'm Jack, by the way. I own Martinez Auto Repair over on Wilson Street, Sarah," she replied simply, watching as his experienced hands moved through the engine compartment. She'd researched him thoroughly before setting up this encounter, but seeing him work up close was different. There was a quiet confidence in his movements, a certainty born of years of experience. "Ah, here's your problem," Jack pointed to a burst coolant line. "The clamp gave way, and you're losing coolant. That's what's causing the steam." He glanced at her, then back at the engine. "I can fix this temporarily, get you back on the road, but you'll want to get it properly replaced soon." Sarah hugged herself against the chill, watching him work. "You can fix it right here?" Jack was already pulling supplies from his toolbox. "I keep emergency repair materials with me, old habit from when I couldn't afford a tow truck." His hands moved surely despite the rain and darkness. Got a little girl at home? Never wanted to risk being stranded with her? You have a daughter? Sarah asked, though she already knew about Emma from her research. The genuine warmth in his voice when he mentioned her was something no background check could have revealed. Emma, he said, and even in the dim light, Sarah could see his face soften. She's 8, wants to be a ballet dancer. He caught himself, seeming embarrassed at sharing personal details with a stranger. Sorry, you probably don't want to hear about— No, please, Sarah interrupted. Tell me about her. And he did, speaking proudly of Emma's dedication to dance as he worked, of her recent performance in her ballet school showcase, of how she practiced her positions even while eating breakfast. The repair took about 20 minutes, during which Sarah learned more about genuine love and dedication than she had in all her years in corporate boardrooms. Jack spoke of his daughter not with the calculated pride she was used to hearing from wealthy parents, but with a pure joy that made her heart ache. That should hold, Jack said finally, closing the hood. He was soaked through, his dark hair plastered to his forehead, but his eyes were bright with satisfaction at a job well done. But like I said, get it checked out properly soon. Sarah reached for her purse. How much do I owe you? Don't worry about it. Jack was already packing up his tools, just helping out. Please, she insisted. You're already late for something. I saw you checking your watch. Let me compensate you for your time. Jack shook his head, that same gentle smile lighting his face. Tell you what, if you want to repay me, just help someone else when they need it. That's how we make the world better, right? He glanced at his watch again and grimaced. I've got to run. You'll be okay. Sarah nodded, momentarily unable to speak past the lump in her throat. She watched as he jogged back to his Honda, its peeling paint a stark contrast to her luxury vehicle. As his taillights disappeared into the rain, she noticed something on the ground, a worn leather wallet that must have fallen from his pocket while he was working. Picking it up, she opened it to check the ID, though she already knew what she would find. Jack Martinez smiled up at her from his driver's license, and behind it, tucked carefully in a plastic sleeve, was a program from Emma's last ballet recital. The edges were worn, as if it had been taken out and looked at many times. Sarah stood, in the rain, holding the wallet that contained more truth than any corporate dossier she'd ever read. In that moment, watching the distant glow of Jack's taillights merge with the city's blur, she made a decision that would change both their lives forever. She pulled out her phone, its screen bright in the darkness. Rebecca, I need you to do something for me. Remember that community investment initiative we've been planning? I think I've found where we're going to start. The rain continued to fall, washing away the barrier between two worlds that had never been meant to meet. In her hand, Jack's wallet seemed to pulse with possibility, or maybe that was just her heart, beating with a purpose she hadn't felt in years. The morning sun filtered through Sarah's home office windows as she spread the contents of Jack's wallet across her desk. Rebecca stood behind her, arms crossed, watching with growing concern as her friend and boss scrutinized every detail like it was $1 million acquisition report. Business license, credit card bills, repair receipts, Sarah murmured, carefully arranging the items. Look at this. He's been making partial payments on Emma's ballet tuition for months, but he never misses one. She held up a creased payment schedule from Chicago Ballet Academy, the due dates marked with careful precision. Rebecca leaned closer. Sarah, you know this isn't exactly legal, right? Going through his personal documents. I'm going to return it, Sarah replied, her fingers tracing the edge of a worn photograph. It showed Jack and Emma at what appeared to be a school talent show, his proud smile identical to the one she'd seen in the rain. I just need to understand how to help without him knowing it's you, Rebecca finished, sighing. I ran the financial analysis you requested. Martinez Auto Repair is actually impressive, considering the neighborhood and economic conditions. High customer satisfaction, excellent reviews, but the overhead is killing him. Property taxes in that area have doubled in the last 3 years. Sarah pulled up her tablet, scrolling through the data Rebecca had compiled. No loans, no mortgages. He's doing everything with cash flow. She paused on a page of customer reviews. Jack fixed my car when no one else would give me a chance. Let me pay in installments. Honest man. Honest work. They're all like this. Rebecca, which is admirable but not sustainable, Rebecca pointed out. The property tax increase alone will force him to close within 6 months, Sarah finished. She stood, pacing the length of her office. Through the windows, she could see the gleaming towers of downtown Chicago, where million-dollar deals were made over breakfast. His daughter's ballet scholarship applications have all been rejected because their household income is just above the threshold for assistance, but well below what's actually needed. And you want to fix all of this. It wasn't a question. Sarah stopped pacing, turning to face her friend. Not fix. Help. There's a difference. She pulled up another document on her tablet. Look at this. I had our team analyze the small business landscape in his neighborhood. 4 auto repair shops have closed in the last year, bought out by developer conglomerates. The community needs businesses like his. So this is about community investment? Rebecca's tone was skeptical. Not about the way he looked at you in the rain? Sarah felt her cheeks warm, but kept her voice steady. This is about doing the right thing, about using our resources to make a real difference. She gestured to her desk, where the wallet's contents told a story of dignity in the face of struggle. He helps people every day, Rebecca, not for profit or recognition, but because it's right. When was the last time we did something simply because it was right? Rebecca was quiet for a moment, studying her friend. Finally, she pulled out her own tablet. All right. If we're doing this, we're doing it properly. The Community Investment Initiative gives us cover for the business side. I can set up a blind trust for the ballet scholarship. No. Sarah's voice was firm. No trusts, no corporate intervention. It needs to be more organic. She picked up the ballet school payment schedule again. Emma's instructor raves about her talent, says she could have a real future in dance with the right training. What if the school suddenly discovered they had an anonymous donor, someone who wanted to sponsor promising students? And the business? Sarah smiled, an idea forming. Tell me, what's the going rate for high-end corporate fleet maintenance contracts? Understanding dawned on Rebecca's face. You want to... Martinez Auto Repair is exactly the kind of local business our new community initiative should support. Small, family-owned, proven track record of community service. Sarah's eyes sparkled with purpose. If they happen to secure a contract, servicing Montgomery Technology's Chicago fleet, you're playing a dangerous game, Rebecca warned, but she was already making notes. If the board finds out, the board, Sarah said firmly, is always telling me to think strategically. Well, this is strategic. We save money on fleet maintenance while supporting local businesses. We get excellent service from a proven professional. And we help preserve the kind of community values that make this city work. She sat back down, pulling up her calendar. Now help me figure out how to return this wallet without revealing who I am. I think it's time Sarah Montgomery disappeared. For a while, as they worked on the details of their plan, Sarah kept glancing at the photograph of Jack and Emma. In their smiles, she saw something her world of high finance often forgot, the simple joy of being true to oneself. She just hoped that when the truth eventually came out, Jack would understand that sometimes help came in disguise, and that kindness, like his own that rainy night, didn't always need a reason. Sarah tugged self-consciously at her second-hand jeans and simple blouse, feeling strangely vulnerable without her usual armor of designer labels. Her normally sleek hair was pulled back in a casual ponytail, and she'd traded her signature heels for worn sneakers. Rebecca had helped perfect the transformation, just another working woman with car troubles, nothing like the polished CEO whose face occasionally graced business magazines. Martinez Auto Repair was exactly as her research had shown, A modest brick building with 3 service bays, the signs paint fading but the workspace immaculately clean. Through the open doors, she could see Jack bent over the engine of an old Volkswagen, his movements precise and focused. A bell chimed as she pushed open the office door. The small waiting area was worn but welcoming, with comfortable chairs and a coffee machine that had seen better days. Children's drawings decorated one wall, ballet dancers in various poses, signed in a child's careful hand. Love, Emma. Be right with you, Jack's voice called from the service bay. Sarah's heart quickened at the sound, remembering their rain-soaked encounter. She forced herself to sit calmly, picking up an outdated magazine while stealing glances at him through the window. He was teaching as he worked, she realized. A younger mechanic stood beside him, watching intently as Jack explained something about the engine, his hands gesturing to emphasize his points, the patience in his expression, the careful way he guided his apprentice. It was a side of him she hadn't expected. "Sorry for the wait," Jack said, appearing in the doorway while wiping his hands on a shop rag. He stopped short when he saw her, a flicker of recognition crossing his face. "Have we? I had car trouble last week," Sarah said quickly, the rehearsed story falling easily from her lips. "Someone helped me on the highway. When I saw your shop's name, I thought maybe—" Jack's face brightened with recognition. "Right, the Mercedes with the coolant leak. Did you get it properly fixed?" "Yes, but now my Civic's making a strange noise." She gestured to the used Honda she'd purchased specifically for this purpose. "I was hoping you could take a look." Of course. Jack's smile was genuine, professional. "Let me just grab my clipboard." He turned to get it, and Sarah caught sight of a small frame on the desk. Emma, in her ballet costume, caught mid-pirouette. The Duca chimed again, and a whirlwind of energy burst into the shop. "Daddy, Miss Thompson says I did the best pirouettes in class today," and Emma stopped short, noticing Sarah. "Oh, sorry. Hi." Sarah replied, her heart melting at the sight of the little girl she'd researched so thoroughly. In person, Emma radiated a joy that no photograph could capture. Her ballet bag was clutched in one hand, a well-worn point shoe ribbon trailing out. "Emma, what have we said about running into the shop?" Jack's tone was gentle but firm as he returned with his clipboard. "Sorry, Daddy." Emma didn't look very sorry at all. "But Miss Thompson says I might get to do a solo in the winter showcase if I keep practicing." She demonstrated a wobbly spin right there in the waiting room. "Careful, Miha." Jack caught her mid-spin, his laugh mixing with her giggle. "Why don't you show me later? Right now I need to help." He paused, looking at Sarah questioningly. "Sarah," she supplied, watching their interaction with a warmth spreading through her chest. "Right. I need to help Sarah with her car. How about you do your homework in the office? If you finish before I'm done, maybe you can show me those pirouettes." Emma beamed, skipping toward the small office behind the counter. She stopped to smile at Sarah. "Do you like ballet?" Before Sarah could answer, Jack gently shooed his daughter along. "Homework first, conversation later." He turned back to Sarah, slightly embarrassed. "Sorry about that. She gets excited about dance." "She seems wonderful," Sarah said honestly, following him out to her car. She watched as he popped the hood, his movements confident and practiced. "She's my whole world," Jack replied simply, beginning his inspection. "Takes after her mother, all grace and determination." A shadow crossed his face briefly, before he focused on the engine. Sarah stood nearby, asking careful questions about maintenance and repair costs. Each answer confirmed what she already knew. He was honest to a fault, explaining exactly what needed to be done and what could wait, consistently recommending the most cost-effective solutions. "The noise is probably just a loose belt," he explained, pointing it out. "I can fix it now if you'd like. Shouldn't take more than an hour." "That would be great." Sarah settled into one of the waiting room chairs, watching through the window as Jack worked. Emma had spread her homework across the office desk, occasionally performing small dance moves when she thought no one was looking. Over the next hour, Sarah observed the steady stream of customers. Jack treated each one with the same respect and honesty. The elderly woman worried about her brake lights, the teenage boy with his first car, the single mother negotiating a payment plan. He wasn't just fixing cars, he was holding a community together. When the repair was finished, the bill was exactly what he'd estimated, far less than what most shops would charge. As Sarah paid, Emma emerged from the office. Homework complete. Can I show you my pirouettes now, Daddy? Jack checked his watch, nearly closing time. Okay, Misha, show me what you learned today. Sarah watched as Emma took position in a clear space of the waiting room. The girl's face transformed, taking on a focus that echoed her father's concentration over an engine. She began to spin, and for a moment, the shabby waiting room became a stage, transformed by a child's passion and a father's pride. Beautiful baby. Jack applauded as Emma finished. He caught Sarah watching and looked slightly embarrassed again. Sorry, family business sometimes gets a little too literal around here. Never apologize for this, Sarah said softly, meaning far more than he could know. It's perfect exactly as it is. Driving away, Sarah's hands trembled slightly on the steering wheel. The plan had been to assess the situation, to confirm her research. Instead, she'd found something far more valuable, a reminder of what real wealth looked like. In her rearview mirror, she could see Jack locking up the shop, Emma twirling beside, him in the fading light. Her phone buzzed with a message from Rebecca. Contract paperwork ready. Sure about this? Sarah typed back a single word. Absolutely. Miss Thompson's office at Chicago Ballet Academy was usually a place of nervousness for Jack. Today was no different, though the email requesting this meeting had mentioned good news regarding Emma. Still, he couldn't help checking his mental calendar of payment dates as he sat in the plush waiting area. Mr. Martinez, please come in. Miss Thompson's smile seemed broader than usual as she welcomed him into her office. I have wonderful news about Emma. Jack's heart skipped. Is this about the Winter Showcase solo? Even better. She pulled out an official-looking letter. The Academy has received a substantial donation from an anonymous benefactor specifically aimed at supporting promising young dancers. Emma has been selected as one of the primary recipients. The world seemed to tilt slightly. What exactly does that mean? Full scholarship, Mr. Martinez. All expenses covered, tuition, supplies, competition fees, private lessons, everything. Miss Thompson's eyes sparkled. The donor was very specific about supporting students who show both talent and dedication. Emma's name came up immediately. Jack sat heavily in the chair, his mind racing. I don't understand. We applied for scholarships before, but the income threshold, this is different. It's a private donation, not our usual scholarship fund. The donor was quite insistent about the selection criteria, focusing solely on talent and passion. She leaned forward. Mr. Martinez, this is an incredible opportunity for Emma. With this kind of support, she could truly pursue her dreams. Pride warred with practicality in Jack's chest. Who is this donor? I'd like to thank them. They've requested complete anonymity. Apparently they believe talent should be supported without creating any sense of obligation. Miss Thompson handed him the paperwork. All you need to do is sign. Jack stared at the documents, his mechanic's hands seeming too rough for such delicate paper. I don't know what to say. Say yes. Miss Thompson smiled. Emma deserves this chance. Later that evening, after Emma had gone to bed, though he could still hear her practicing her positions despite his warnings about bedtime, Jack sat at their small kitchen table reading through the scholarship documents for the 10th time. Everything seemed legitimate, but years of struggling had taught him to be wary of things that seemed too good to be true. His phone buzzed with a text from his evening job supervisor. Don't worry about coming in tonight. Take care of your girl. Jack frowned. He hadn't even called in to explain about the meeting. The next morning brought another surprise. A sleek corporate car pulled into his shop, the driver explaining it was part of a new fleet maintenance contract with Montgomery Technologies. The paperwork was already prepared, the terms more generous than anything he'd seen before. "Must be my lucky week," he muttered, signing the contract. But something nagged at him, a connection he couldn't quite make. That evening, Emma twirled around their apartment, clutching her new ballet shoes, part of the scholarship package. "Daddy, look, they're perfect, and Miss Thompson says I can start advanced classes next week." Jack watched his daughter dance, her joy radiating through their small space. Part of him wanted to question this sudden turn of fortune, to probe deeper into this mysterious benefactor. But looking at Emma's face, seeing her dreams suddenly within reach, he felt his suspicion war with gratitude. "Daddy?" Emma paused in her spinning. "Do you think angels are real?" Jack thought of his late wife, of all the times they'd worried about Emma's future. "Maybe they are, Mija. Maybe they are." Across town, in her penthouse office, Sarah watched the signed fleet contract arrive in her inbox. Rebecca stood nearby, monitoring the situation. "The scholarship went through?" Sarah asked, trying to keep her voice neutral. "Smoothly, though he asked about the donor." Sarah turned to the window, hiding her smile. "Good. That's phase 1. Now we just have to—" "Sarah," Rebecca's tone was warning. "Are you sure about this? Once you start down this path?" "I'm sure." Sarah watched the city lights below, imagining Emma practicing in her new shoes, Jack sleeping easier without the weight of constant worry. Sometimes help comes from unexpected places. He taught me that. Over the next few weeks, Sarah's Honda became a regular sight at Martinez Auto Repair. She'd carefully orchestrate small issues, a squeaky brake, a timing check, anything that gave her a legitimate reason to visit. Each time, she shed a little more of her CEO persona, finding comfort in the simple jeans and ponytails that had once felt like a disguise. "Back again?" Jack teased one afternoon as she pulled in. "Starting to think you bought a lemon." "Just being careful," she replied, watching him pop the hood. "Besides, Emma promised to show me her new dance routine." As if summoned by her name, Emma burst out of the office. "Sarah, did you bring it?" Sarah pulled a worn copy of Swan Lake from her bag, a deliberately used edition she'd tracked down to match her cover story of being a former dancer. Emma clutched it reverently. "Daddy, can I show Sarah the new moves Miss Thompson taught me?" "Please." Jack glanced up from the engine. "Homework first, Mija." "Already done." Emma proudly held up her completed math worksheets. "Sarah helped me yesterday while you were fixing Mrs. Rodriguez's car." Something softened in Jack's expression as he looked between them. "All right, but be careful. No jumping in the waiting room." They had fallen into an easy routine. Sarah would arrive late in the afternoon, supposedly for car maintenance. While Jack worked, she'd help Emma with homework or share stories about ballet. She carefully curated these tales from research and videos, always conscious of maintaining a story. "Your pirouettes are getting stronger," Sarah noted, as Emma demonstrated her progress. "You're spotting much better now. Miss Thompson says I might be ready for the winter showcase solo." Emma beamed. "Will you come watch, Sarah? Please?" Sarah felt Jack's eyes on them before she could answer. "I'd love to," she said carefully, "if your dad doesn't mind." Later, as Jack finished with her car, he seemed thoughtful. "You're good with her," he said quietly. "She doesn't usually warm up to people so quickly." "She's special," Sarah replied honestly. "You've done an amazing job with her, Jack." He wiped his hands on a shop rag, hesitating. "Listen, we're having a small celebration dinner tomorrow. Emma's been chosen for that showcase solo. Nothing fancy, just pizza and ice cream, but would you like to join us?" Sarah's heart leaped even as anxiety twisted in her stomach. Every closer step to their lives increased the risk of discovery. But looking at Jack's slightly nervous expression, she couldn't say no. "I'd love to," she heard herself say. What time? That night, alone in her penthouse, Sarah stared at her closet full of designer clothes. "What have I gotten myself into, Rebecca?" Her friend looked up from the tablet where she was managing Sarah's corporate schedule. "You could always tell him the truth." And risk ruining everything? Sarah pulled out her growing collection of Sarah the former dancer clothes. He'd never. Trust me again. Maybe you're not giving him enough credit, Rebecca suggested gently, but Sarah remembered the pride in Jack's eyes when he talked about making his own way, about teaching Emma the value of hard work. How could she tell him that? Their recent good fortune wasn't just luck or merit, but her anonymous orchestration. The next evening, watching Jack and Emma laugh over pizza in their small apartment, Sarah felt both more and less herself than she had in years. Emma demonstrated her solo between bites, using the living room as her stage. Jack watched his daughter with pure joy, occasionally catching Sarah's eye with a smile that made her forget about billion-dollar deals and corporate mergers. "Thank you for coming," he said softly as he walked her to her car later. "It means a lot to Emma." And he hesitated. "To me too." Standing there in the gentle evening light, Sarah wanted nothing more than to tell him everything. Instead, she smiled and said, "Thank you for inviting me. It means a lot to me too." As she drove away, she caught sight of them in her rear view mirror, Jack lifting Emma onto his shoulders, both waving goodbye. The guilt of her deception weighed heavily, but the warmth of belonging, even under false pretenses, felt too precious to give up. The Chicago Ballet Academy's auditorium hummed with excitement as parents and friends filed in for the winter showcase. Sarah sat near the back, her heart racing every time the door opened, worried that someone from her corporate world might recognize her. She'd chosen a modest dress and minimal makeup, her hair pulled back simply, but she still felt exposed. Backstage, Jack straightened Emma's costume one last time, his fingers trembling slightly as he adjusted the sparkly hairpiece that had once belonged to her mother. "Mama would be so proud of you, Mija," he whispered, blinking back tears. "She's watching, Daddy," Emma said with 8-year-old certainty. "And Sarah's watching too." Her face lit up as she spotted her favorite audience member through the curtain gap. Jack's eyes followed his daughter's gaze, finding Sarah in the crowd. Something warm stirred in his chest at the sight of her, dressed simply but radiating a grace that seemed to come from within. She'd become such a natural part of their lives over the past weeks, filling a void he hadn't even realized was there. The lights dimmed and the showcase began. Sarah watched the other performances with polite interest, but when Emma took the stage for her solo, the world seemed to hold its breath. The little girl who spun through Jack's waiting room was transformed, every movement precise yet full of joy. Jack stood in the wings, mouthing the counts along with his daughter, his hand pressed against his heart. When Emma launched into her series of pirouettes, the ones she'd practiced endlessly in their tiny apartment, he heard Sarah's soft gasp of delight from the audience. Emma's performance ended with thunderous applause, and Jack wasn't the only. When wiping away tears, as he helped her off stage, she was bubbling with excitement. "Did you see, Daddy? Did you see my turns? And Sarah's here. Can we have ice cream with her after?" Before Jack could answer, Miss Thompson appeared, beaming. "Emma, that was wonderful." The director of the summer intensive program was very impressed. She handed Jack a glossy brochure. "We'd love to have Emma attend, with her scholarship, of course." Later, at the ice cream parlor, Emma happily demolished a sundae while describing every moment of her performance. Sarah listened intently, her own ice cream melting forgotten as she watched father and daughter interact. "And then I did the turns, just like you showed me, Sarah. Did you see?" "You were amazing," Sarah said truthfully, her chest tight with emotion. "A real ballerina." Jack watched them, noting how naturally Sarah fit into their celebration, how her eyes sparkled when Emma talked about dance. She caught him staring and smiled, a slight blush coloring her cheeks. "Thank you for coming," he said softly, while Emma was distracted by the last bits of her sundae. "It means more than you know." Sarah felt the weight of her deception heavy in her stomach. Here was this man, this wonderful father, thanking her for simply showing up, while she secretly orchestrated major changes in their lives. The genuine gratitude in his eyes made her want to confess everything. "I wouldn't have missed it," she managed instead, her voice thick with unsaid words. As they left the ice cream parlor, Emma twirling ahead of them in the cool evening air, Jack gathered his courage. "Sarah, I was wondering if maybe, sometime, you'd like to have dinner, just us." Sarah's heart soared even as panic fluttered in her chest. Getting closer meant more risk, more chances for her careful facade to crack. But looking at Jack's hopeful expression, she found herself nodding. "I'd like that very much." Emma's voice floated back to them. "Daddy, Sarah, look, I'm dancing with the stars." She spun under the streetlights, her shadow making patterns on the sidewalk. Sarah watched the little girl dance, watched Jack laugh with pure joy, and felt herself falling deeper into a world she'd created through deception, but had come to love. With complete honesty, tomorrow she would return to her world of corporate power and billion-dollar decisions. But for now, she was just Sarah, watching a little girl dance under the stars with her father. The morning started like any other at Martinez Auto Repair. Jack was under the hood of a Montgomery Technologies fleet car when his phone buzzed with a news alert, something he'd set up to track local business developments that might affect his shop. He almost ignored it, but the name in the headline caught his eye. Montgomery Technologies CEO Sarah Montgomery's secret life exposed. His hands trembled as he opened the article, and there she was. Sarah, his Sarah, in an elegant business suit, standing in front of a corporate logo. The photo split screen showed another image, security camera footage of her entering his shop in her casual disguise. The timestamp was from just 2 days ago. Local billionaire Sarah Montgomery, CEO of Montgomery Technologies, has been spotted frequenting a small auto repair shop in Chicago's working-class district. The article read, "Sources suggest the tech mogul has been living a double life, regularly visiting Martinez Auto Repair under an assumed identity. This comes amid rumors of her rejecting a proposed merger with Chen Industries and implementing controversial community investment initiatives." The wrench in Jack's hand clattered to the floor. Everything started falling into place. The mysterious scholarship, the fleet maintenance contract, the convenient timing of it all. His mind raced back through every conversation, every shared moment, recasting them in this new light. Jack. Sarah's voice, her real voice, came from the shop entrance. She stood there in her simple disguise, but now he could see through it. The expensive watch she'd tried to hide, the perfect posture that spoke of privilege rather than dance training. Her face was pale, phone clutched in her hand. "I can explain." "Can you?" His voice was barely a whisper. "Was any of it real, or was I just some kind of social experiment?" "No, Jack, please." She stepped forward, but he backed away. "The scholarship for Emma, the contract, all of it. It was you before." Sarah could answer. Emma burst through the door, tablet in hand. "Daddy, look! Sarah's on the news. She's—" The little girl stopped short, sensing the tension in the room. "Sarah?" Sarah's heart shattered at the confusion in Emma's voice. "Emma, sweetheart, don't!" Jack's voice was sharp. "Just don't!" He turned to his daughter, softening. His tone, "Emma, baby, go to the office and start your homework. But Daddy, now please." Once Emma was gone, the silence between them grew thick with unspoken words. Through the office window, Jack could see his daughter staring at her tablet, the news story still playing. "I never meant to hurt you," Sarah finally said. "Everything I did was because I wanted to help." "Help?" Jack laughed bitterly. "By lying, by making me think." He stopped, running a hand through his hair. "Do you have any idea what it's like to realize everything you thought was real was just some rich person's charity project? It wasn't like that." Sarah stepped closer, her composure cracking. "That night on the highway, you helped me without knowing who I was, without wanting anything in return. Do you know how rare that is in my world? How precious? So you decided to play dress-up to see how the other half lives? I decided to be someone who could know you without all this getting in the way." She gestured to the news article still, glowing on his phone. "To help without you letting your pride stop you from accepting it." Jack's face hardened. "My pride? Is that what you think this is about? This is about trust, Sarah, or whatever your real name is. Sarah Montgomery is my real name. Everything I told you about myself was true, except the $1 billion company you run. The fact that you've been manipulating our lives behind the scenes." He shook his head. "The scholarship, the contract, was anything not bought and paid for. My feelings for you," Sarah whispered, "for Emma, those were real." Through the window, they could see Emma attempting a pirouette, trying to distract herself from the adult drama unfolding. The sight seemed to drain the anger from Jack, leaving only hurt. "I think you should go," he said quietly. "The fleet contract, I'll have it transferred to another shop, and the scholarship—" "Please don't punish Emma for my mistakes," Sarah pleaded. "The scholarship is legitimate, no strings attached. She earned it with her talent." "Did she? Or did you make that happen too?" Jack turned away, his shoulders heavy. "Just go, Sarah. We managed before you came into our lives. We'll manage after." Sarah stood there, tears streaming down her face, watching as the world she'd carefully built crumbled around her. Through the office window, Emma caught her eye, waving hesitantly. Sarah forced a smile and waved back, then turned and walked out of the shop. The next few days passed in a blur of awkward silences and avoided conversations. Emma's questions became increasingly difficult to answer, each one piercing Jack's heart like a tiny arrow. "But why can't Sarah come to my practice anymore?" Emma asked over breakfast, pushing her cereal around the bowl. "She promised to help me with my arabesques." Jack stared into his coffee cup, searching for the right words. "Sometimes, Mija, grown-ups have complicated reasons for the things they do. Is it because she's rich? Tommy at school showed me on his phone. She owns, like, everything." Emma's face brightened. "Maybe she can buy us a bigger apartment with a real dance studio." "Emma," Jack's voice was firm, "we don't need anyone to buy us anything. What we have, we earn. But the scholarship— Eat your breakfast. You'll be late for class." At the ballet academy, whispers followed Emma through the hallways. Other parents cast sideways glances at Jack, their expressions mixing curiosity with something that looked uncomfortably like pity. Miss Thompson tried to maintain normalcy, but even she seemed uncertain how to handle the situation. "Mr. Martinez," she caught him after dropping Emma off. "About the scholarship." "She earned it," Jack cut in, more sharply than intended. "My daughter earned it with her talent and hard work." Miss Thompson's face softened. "Yes, she did. That's actually what I wanted to say. Sarah, Ms. Montgomery, she didn't influence the selection committee. Emma was chosen on merit alone." The knot in Jack's chest tightened. Even the comfort of righteous anger was being taken from him. Meanwhile, across town, Sarah sat in her corporate office, surrounded by crisis management teams and PR consultants. The board was in an uproar, though not for the reasons she'd expected. "The public loves it," Rebecca reported, sliding a tablet across the desk. "Local billionaire CEO goes undercover to help small businesses. It's a PR goldmine. The Community Investment Initiative is being hailed as revolutionary." "I don't care about PR," Sarah said quietly, staring at a candid photo someone had captured of her helping Emma with homework in the shop's waiting room. "I just want to make it right," Rebecca finished. "Then maybe start by being honest with yourself about why you did all this." The Montgomery Technologies fleet cars started going to other shops. Jack threw himself into work, taking on extra repairs to fill the sudden gap in revenue. Emma's practiced smile grew smaller each day. Sarah didn't appear. Late one night, after Emma had finally fallen asleep, Jack found himself looking through photos on his phone. There was one of the three of them at the ice cream parlor after Emma's recital. Sarah's face lit with genuine joy as Emma demonstrated a dance move over her melting sundae. His thumb hovered over the delete button, but he couldn't press it. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "I know you probably won't read this, but Emma's winter showcase video is up on the Academy's private channel. I thought you might want to see how it looked from the audience. The password is pirouette. as Jack stared at the message for a long time. Finally, he typed back, "Why?" The response came quickly. "Because every parent should get to see their child's moments of triumph from every angle. Because Emma deserves to have her achievements documented. Because even though you hate me right now, I can't stop caring about both of you." He didn't reply, but that night he watched the video. The camera had caught not just Emma's performance, but his own face in the wings, the pride, the joy, the love. And there in the audience was Sarah, wiping away tears as Emma took her final bow. The next morning, Emma was quieter than usual as they drove to the academy. Finally, she spoke. "Daddy, can you be mad at someone and miss them at the same time?" Jack's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Yeah, Mia, you can." "Good," Emma said softly. "Because I'm mad at Sarah for making you sad. But I miss her telling me stories about ballet. Is that okay?" Jack pulled into the academy parking lot, turning to face his daughter. "Your feelings are always okay, Emma. Always." What wasn't okay was the hollow feeling in his chest every time he glanced at the empty chair in his waiting room, or the way he still turned to share Emma's small triumphs with someone who wasn't there anymore. Sarah sat in her office, mindlessly scrolling through emails, when Rebecca rushed in with an envelope in hand. "This came for you through the corporate office. It's from Emma Martinez." The envelope was pink, decorated with hand-drawn ballet shoes. Sarah's hands trembled as she opened it, recognizing Emma's careful schoolgirl handwriting. "Dear Sarah, Miss Thompson helped me find your address because I really need to tell you something. Daddy doesn't know I'm writing this. He's still sad. A lot, even though he tries to smile for me. I wanted to tell you about my mom. Her name was Maria, and she was a dancer too, but not professional like the ones you told me about. She used to dance in the kitchen while making dinner. Daddy says I have her smile. When she got sick, Daddy worked all the time to pay the doctor bills. He thinks I don't remember, but I do. I remember him sleeping in the hospital chair, still, in his work clothes. After Mama went to heaven, he sold his dad's old car collection to keep the shop open and pay for my ballet. That's why he gets weird about money stuff. It's not because he's proud like you said. It's because last time he accepted help, it wasn't enough to save Mama. At least that's what I think, from the way he looks at her picture sometimes. But Sarah, he was different with you. He laughed more. And when you watched me dance, you had the same look Mama used to have, like nothing else in the whole world mattered more than that moment. I know you're really rich and important. Tommy at school showed me on his iPad that you have more money than space has stars. Is that true? But when you helped me with my math homework and told me stories about ballet, it never felt like you were rich or important. It just felt like you were Sarah. Daddy always says that when we love people, we have to love all of them, even the parts that make us mad sometimes. Like how he still loves me even when I practice pirouettes after bedtime. I think maybe he forgot that rule about, "You, I miss you. I miss your stories and the way you fixed my hair before practice and how you made Daddy smile." He misses you too, even though he pretends he doesn't. Yesterday, I saw him looking at the picture from my recital where you're helping me with my costume. Please don't stop caring about us just because Daddy's hurt. He says time helps heal hearts, like how my knee got better after I fell at practice. Maybe his heart just needs more time. Love, Emma P.S. I got the solo for the spring showcase. I wish you could come see it. P.P.S. I haven't told Daddy, but sometimes I pretend you're my guardian angel like Mama. Is that okay? Sarah read the letter 3 times, tears falling freely onto the pink paper. Rebecca stood quietly by her desk, offering silent support. "She's wise beyond her years," Rebecca finally said. "She's everything good about both of them," Sarah whispered. Carefully folding the letter, she pulled up her calendar on the computer, staring at the upcoming board meeting where she was supposed to announce a strategic restructuring of the company. "What are you thinking?" Rebecca asked, recognizing the look in her friend's eyes. "I'm thinking it's time to stop hiding." Sarah stood up, determination replacing grief in her expression. Emma's right. When we love people, we have to love all of them. Maybe it's time I let them love all of me, too, billions and all. And if Jack's not ready? Sarah touched the letter gently. Then I'll wait until his heart heals. But I won't hide who I am anymore, and I won't apologize for wanting to help. Emma deserves to see that there's no shame in either giving or receiving help when it comes from love. Later that evening, Jack found a similar pink envelope on his desk at the shop. Inside, in his daughter's familiar handwriting, was a copy of the letter she'd sent to Sarah. At the bottom, Emma had added a note just for him. Daddy, Mama always said love is like a dance. Sometimes you have to trust your partner enough to catch you when you fall. Maybe it's time to trust again? Love, Emma. Jack sat in his office long after closing time, reading and rereading his daughter's words, while across the city, Sarah began drafting a letter of her own. The media circus erupted on a quiet Tuesday morning. Jack arrived at his shop to find news vans parked along the street, reporters clutching microphones and coffee cups in the early light. Someone had leaked Emma's letter to the press. Mr. Martinez, how do you respond to claims that Sarah Montgomery was manipulating your family? Is it true your daughter sees Ms. Montgomery as a mother figure? Are you planning to sue Montgomery Technologies for emotional damages? Jack shouldered past them, his jaw set tight, using his body to shield Emma as they made their way to the shop door. His daughter clutched her ballet bag close, eyes wide at the forest of cameras. Daddy, she whispered. Did I do something wrong? With the letter? No, Mija. He locked the door behind them, drawing the blinds. You did nothing wrong. Sometimes. Grown-ups just make things complicated. Across town, Sarah faced her own media gauntlet. The board had called an emergency meeting, concerned about the public relations impact. But as she stood before them, Emma's letter burning a hole in her jacket pocket, she found herself caring less about stock prices and more about the trust she'd broken. Miss Montgomery, the media is painting this as either a calculated PR stunt or a wealthy woman's midlife crisis, one board member said. Which narrative would you prefer we push? Sarah straightened, something shifting in her chest. Neither. I'm going to tell the truth. She walked out of the boardroom and straight to the press conference that had assembled in the lobby. Rebecca hurried behind her, whispering, Sarah, are you sure about this? I've never been more sure of anything. The cameras flashed as Sarah approached the podium, but instead of her usual corporate polish, she let them see her vulnerability, her humanity. Yes, I'm Sarah Montgomery, CEO of Montgomery Technologies. Yes, I disguised myself to visit Martinez Auto Repair, but not for publicity, not for some social experiment. She took a deep breath. I did it because one rainy night, a man who had every reason to keep driving stopped to help a stranger. He showed me what real wealth looks like, not in dollars, but in dignity, in kindness, in teaching his daughter that everyone deserves help, no matter who they are. Back at the shop, Jack watched the press conference on his phone, Emma peering over his shoulder. I won't apologize for wanting to help his family, Sarah continued, her voice strong despite the tears in her eyes. But I will apologize for not trusting Jack Martinez enough to be honest about who I was. I thought my name, my wealth, would become a barrier. Instead, my deception created exactly what I was trying to avoid. The reporters erupted with questions, but Sarah held up her hand. You want to know if this was a PR stunt? Look at our community investment initiative. Look at the small businesses we've helped, the scholarships we've funded. One man's kindness inspired a billion-dollar company to remember its humanity. That's not a story. That's a revolution. Emma tugged at Jack's sleeve. Daddy, can I say something to the reporters? Please? Jack looked down at his daughter, seeing Maria's determination in her eyes. After a long moment, he nodded. Outside, Emma faced the cameras with the same poise she showed on stage. Sarah didn't trick us. She said clearly, she just wanted to be our friend, without everyone making a big deal about money. And she told me stories about ballet and helped me with homework and made my daddy smile again after a really long time. The reporters fell silent, cameras capturing every word from the small dancer in her practice clothes. My mama used to say that sometimes angels come in disguise, Emma continued. They don't have wings or halos. They just have big hearts and help people because it's right. Sarah's like that. And maybe everyone's so busy being mad about how she helped that they forgot to be happy that she did. The video of Emma's impromptu speech went viral within hours. Angels in Disguise started trending, with people sharing stories of unexpected kindness in their lives. That evening, as Jack closed up the shop, a single reporter remained. "Mr. Martinez, do you have any response to your daughter's statement?" Jack thought about Emma's letter, about Sarah's press conference, about all the moments that had felt so real despite the circumstances surrounding them. Finally, he spoke. "Sometimes," he said quietly, "the brightest light comes from unexpected places, and maybe we need to be brave enough to accept it when it does." He turned away from the cameras, but not before they caught the ghost of a smile on his face. One that looked remarkably like hope. The Montgomery Technologies boardroom crackled with tension. Sarah faced the dozen stern faces around the massive table, her back straight, her resolve unwavering. Thomas Chen's voice cut through the silence. "This has gone far enough, Sarah. The Chen merger would stabilize both companies. Instead, you're turning us into some kind of charity organization, all because of a mechanic and his daughter." Before Sarah could respond, the boardroom door opened. All heads turned as Jack Martinez walked in, still in his work clothes, a streak of grease on his sleeve. "Actually," he said, his voice steady despite the nervous pounding of his heart, "I'd like to talk about that mechanic and his daughter." Rebecca, who had quietly arranged his entry, gave Sarah a slight nod. Sarah's eyes widened, but she quickly regained her composure. "The board recognizes Jack Martinez," she said formally, though her voice trembled slightly. Jack stepped forward, looking each board member in the eye. "You all see numbers on spreadsheets. I see people in my shop every day, real people struggling to keep their cars running, to get to work, to keep their lives moving forward. Sarah saw that too when she came to my shop, not as your CEO, but as someone who wanted to understand." Thomas Chen scoffed. "And what exactly qualifies you to address this board?" 20 years of watching corporate buyouts destroy small businesses in my neighborhood. A lifetime of seeing how the decisions made in rooms like this affect people like me. Jack's voice grew stronger. "But mostly, I'm qualified because I'm the reason we're all here. The reason your CEO remembered that business isn't just about profit margins." Sarah stepped forward, standing beside him. "The Community Investment Initiative has generated more positive press and public goodwill than any merger could. Our stock is up 15% since the story broke. Because people love a fairy tale," another board member sneered. "No," Jack countered, "because people are tired of walls between worlds. Rich, poor, corporate, working class. We're all just trying to build something better for our kids." He turned to Sarah. "I was angry about the deception, but I never doubted why you did it. You wanted to help without power getting in the way. I understand that now." The room fell silent. Thomas Chen looked between them, his expression calculating. Finally he spoke. "And what exactly are you proposing?" Sarah squared her shoulders. "The Community Investment Initiative continues with expanded funding. We focus on sustainable growth that benefits both the company and the communities we serve. And the Chen merger," she smiled. "I think we've demonstrated there are better ways to build partnerships." One by one, the board members nodded. Even Thomas Chen gave a grudging shrug of acceptance. As they left the boardroom, Sarah turned to Jack. "Thank you. But why?" Jack's eyes softened. "Because Emma was right. Sometimes we have to be brave enough to let the light in, no matter where it comes from." They found themselves back where it all began, on the side of the rain-slicked highway where they'd first met. Sarah's Mercedes was parked behind Jack's Honda, both cars' hazard lights blinking in the gathering dusk. Of all the places to talk, Jack said, leaning against his car's hood. It felt right, Sarah replied, her designer suit incongruous against the backdrop of passing trucks. This is where I first saw the real you. And now, she gestured to herself. No more disguises between them. Now I'm seeing the real you, Jack finished. He was quiet for a moment, watching the traffic pass. You know, Emma asks about you every day. Sarah's heart clenched. I miss her too, both of you. When Maria died, Jack said suddenly, I promised myself I'd never let Emma see me vulnerable again. She'd already lost one parent. She needed the other one to be strong. He turned to face Sarah. But with you, I started to feel like maybe it was okay to not be strong all the time. Jack, let me finish, he said gently. What hurt wasn't that you were Sarah Montgomery, CEO. What hurt was thinking that none of it was real. That the person who helped Emma with her homework, who laughed at my bad jokes, who looked at us like we were something precious, that she was just a character you were playing. Sarah stepped closer, her eyes bright with unshed tears. She wasn't. Everything I felt, everything I showed you and Emma, that was the real me, more real than any boardroom version of myself. I believe you, Jack said softly. Watching you in that boardroom today, standing up for what you believe in, for our community. That was the same Sarah who sat in my waiting room teaching Emma about pirouettes. A truck passed, its headlights illuminating the tears on Sarah's cheeks. So where do we go from here? Jack reached out, taking her hand. I don't know. Our worlds are still very different. Maybe that's not a bad thing, Sarah suggested. Maybe we need both worlds. The honesty of yours, the resources of mine. Maybe together we can build something better than either of us could alone. Jack's thumb traced circles on her palm. Emma would like that. Building something together. And you? Sarah asked, her voice barely a whisper. In answer, Jack pulled her close, their foreheads touching. I already told you. Sometimes we have to be brave enough to let the light in. The transformation of Martinez Auto Repair happened gradually over the next few months. First came the updated equipment, state-of-the-art diagnostic tools that Jack had always dreamed of but could never afford. Then came the expansion, with 2 new service bays and a properly renovated waiting area. But the heart of the place remained unchanged. The price is still too high, Jack insisted to an elderly customer, reviewing her repair estimate. Let's see what we can do to work within your budget. Sarah, sitting quietly in the corner with her laptop, smiled behind her spreadsheets. The shop had become their shared space, a perfect blend of both worlds. While Jack worked his magic with engines, Sarah would handle business calls and emails from the waiting room, occasionally helping Emma with her homework between meetings. The regulars had gotten used to seeing the CEO of Montgomery Technologies, in jeans and a casual blazer, bringing coffee for everyone in the morning. You know, Sarah said one evening as they closed up, the Community Investment Initiative has helped 20 other small businesses in the neighborhood this quarter. Jack looked around his shop, still his, but better. And none of them had to fall in love with a billionaire? Sarah laughed, wrapping her arms around his waist. No, that was a special service just for you. The bell chimed as Emma burst in from her ballet practice, still in her leotard. Daddy! Sarah! Miss Thompson says I'm ready for point shoes. That's wonderful, sweetie, Sarah exclaimed, while Jack's face showed the usual mix of pride and protective concern. Just think, Emma continued, spinning across the waiting room floor. Someday kids will practice in the dance studio right next door. Jack and Sarah exchanged glances. The community center they were planning to build beside the shop was supposed to be a surprise, a place where local kids could take dance classes, get homework help, and have a safe space after school. Maybe someday, Jack said, pulling his daughter into a hug. But for now, let's celebrate those point shoes. Ice cream? As they walked to their favorite ice cream parlor, Sarah's designer purse slung casually over her mechanic's shop jacket, Emma dancing between them. They were just a family. Not a CEO, not a mechanic, not a scholarship student, just 3 people who had found each other against all odds. The Chicago theater's backstage was alive with nervous energy as young dancers prepared for their spring performance. Emma stood in her costume, a perfect blend of grace and excitement, as Sarah helped adjust her tiara, while Jack watched with misty eyes. "Your mama would be so proud," he whispered, touching the small pendant around Emma's neck, Maria's favorite piece of jewelry, now passed down to her daughter. "She is proud," Emma said confidently. "She sent me Sarah to make sure I'd have someone to help with my hair for performances." She hugged Sarah tightly, careful not to wrinkle her costume. Sarah blinked back tears, meeting Jack's gaze over their daughter's head. They hadn't discussed official adoption yet, but in their hearts they all knew what they were to each other. "5 minutes, dancers," Miss Thompson called out, beaming as she passed by. The Dance Academy's partnership with the community centre had opened up opportunities for dozens of local children, with Emma leading the way as their inspiration. "Remember," Sarah said, adjusting Emma's final hairpin, "no matter what happens out there, we're already proud of you." Jack finished. Emma smiled, a perfect mix of Maria's grace and Jack's determination, with a touch of Sarah's confidence. "I know, I have the best family in the world." As she took her place in the wings, Sarah slipped her hand into Jack's. He squeezed it gently, both of them thinking about the journey that had brought them here. From a rainy highway to this moment, watching their daughter prepare to soar. Together, they made their way to their seats in the audience. A successful CEO and a respected mechanic, no longer worried about the worlds they came from, but focused entirely on the one they had built together. 1 year to the day since their first meeting, 2 cars pulled up on the rain-slicked highway outside Chicago. This time, there was no breakdown, no pretense, just a planned moment of remembrance. Sarah stepped out of her Mercedes, no longer hiding who she was, while Jack emerged from his newly restored Honda, a project they'd completed together, blending his expertise with her resources. Emma bounded out after them, her ballet bag slung over her shoulder as always. "Is this really where you met?" Emma asked, twirling in the light drizzle. "It's kind of romantic, like a fairy tale." Jack and Sarah exchanged knowing smiles. Their story had become something of a modern legend in Chicago. The billionaire CEO and the kind-hearted mechanic who found love on a rainy night. But they knew the real magic wasn't in the fairy tale, it was in the everyday moments they'd built together. "Sometimes," Sarah said, taking Jack's hand, "the best love stories start with a simple act of kindness." And sometimes, Jack added, pulling Emma close with his free arm, they end with something even better, a family. The rain fell softly around them, 3 hearts beating as one, while passing cars created a symphony of their own. They stood together where 2 worlds had once collided and now merged perfectly into something new, something real.